All right. Hi, Will. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brad. How are you?
Good. Thank you. We really appreciate it here at InfoTrust and Tag Inspector for you to join this conversation and kind of share a little bit about your background with Tag Inspector and your organization. Just to give a little background for the audience, we started working together, having the initial conversations August of last year is when I was
hard to believe.
So really appreciate you reaching out to us, and I'm excited to kind of check in almost a year later about how IQVIA has used Tag Inspector in its product. But before we get to that, let's start off maybe a question for you. We'd love to just understand a little bit of overview of your background and a little bit more about your organization and who your clients are and how you guys work in your space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a senior consultant on within IQVIA's omni-channel marketing team, which is a huge mouthful. Really what it means is that IQVIA primarily or almost exclusively services the biopharma industry. So our clients are everyone from the Fortune 100 major pharmaceutical companies. We represent pretty much every drug that comes to market in some capacity or another. On down to the smaller biotech firms that you've never heard of, but that are doing amazing work and really innovative treatment therapies and things like that. So the common need for all of those companies, big and small, and where we come in is really providing this multi-channel experience. So we're measuring everything that can be measured. And so a lot of that is digital, some of it's not digital. But I would say, especially for our group, we primarily play with the websites, digital media, those kinds of things. And one of the biggest challenges and how we got, kind of involved with Tag Inspector is that whenever you're measuring things and tracking things can break. And there's always a constant need for a really good, solid data governance model. So that's a little bit of background on what we do and kind of within our very, very large organization, what our group does. And kind of what led us to you guys.
Thank you. And I think from a Tag Inspector standpoint, when we had that initial conversation, I can go back there like it was yesterday. And as soon as you said multi-brand, complexity, lots of clients, that's really a good fit for us. And that's really in our wheelhouse as Tag Inspector because it allows you to scale some of those items. So speaking specifically about Tag Inspector, we obviously are aware of what challenge you face as an organization, but could you share maybe with the audience of what did IQVIA, what challenges were you facing in your role, and why did you think Tag Inspector was a good fit? So we'd love to just understand the challenges that we may have helped you address.
Sure, yeah, it's a perfect segue because that recognition that our clients, so take a very large pharmaceutical client, within them, they have all of these different drugs, or we refer to them as brands, that act almost as mini companies within companies. And so they all have their own sets of different priorities and different standards a lot of times. So one of the biggest challenges we were finding is how do we scale tagging at the enterprise level for these clients where we have many different stakeholders, many different ideas on how to measure and what to measure. So I think the name of the game for us really was that challenge of scale. And the biggest thing that we saw, from a use case standpoint was that, we're managing I'll take one client in particular, we're managing a portfolio of over 40 sites and drastically different audiences. And so because there were so many moving pieces, oftentimes sites would be updated or tags would change or added or be deleted without us knowing, because that's a lot of, our team's relatively small and that it's, 4 or 5 people. So that's just a lot of sites to keep track of from a manual standpoint. So that's really what brought us to Tag Inspector, after doing some research and really understanding who was best in class with, scalability in terms of helping us keep a finger on the pulse, so to speak, of our enterprise tagging. So it was really giving us that peace of mind of knowing when things are happening, when things are changing and being able to respond to that. So both a proactive, kind of approach, as well as making us much more efficient when we're reacting to changes.
Awesome. I think that was very cool. And it's really when we talk about that use case of just data collection and validation is how do you work, how do you avoid your team spending a lot of resources working on tags and spending their entire day checking tags across these 40 brands or properties, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I guess looking at today, since we've kind of worked with your team to onboard, and you've kind of worked with your clients, could you maybe share a little bit how Tag Inspector has kind of changed or impacted those conversations that you're now having with your clients and your strong partners?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things I would stress is that I feel like from the start of this engagement, you guys have really been a true partner to us, which has been fantastic. So it's just made it's given us that confidence that we have a really solid model in place. The team worked with us endlessly and had lots of patience to get all of the validation rules set up. So, in layman's terms, just making sure that, treating each site as unique. So really kind of deploying a bespoke solution, but across all the sites that we had. And that really transformed how we were able to have conversations with our client, because we didn't have to talk in general, very broad terms of like, here's what is happening with these 40 sites. We could, but we also knew, through the services that you guys provided, that we had a very custom solution in place for each one of them. And that, we had these alerts set up as well with the Tag Inspector team that kind of let us rest easy in between these content updates, not worrying that things were breaking or changing behind the scenes. So just from a scalability and resource standpoint, it allowed us to take our internal team and focus on some of the more custom work that we needed to do on our end. And that always makes a client happy when you're getting to the really big job. But again, I think just that confidence and peace of mind, comes through in our communication since we started with you guys.
Well, I really appreciate those nice words about us. And I think what we strive for is partners like yourselves that are engaged, right? A lot of times it has to be a two-way street between partnerships. So thank you to you and your team. Have given us the opportunity to kind of help be an extension of your team and deliver the results that you need to deliver to your clients. So speaking of your vertical, as you mentioned earlier, you're really focused in that healthcare space. We have a lot of partners in healthcare, which is where it was a great complementary partnership between our companies. Could you maybe speak to just the importance of data privacy and compliance? We have GDPR, that was a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, but we have CCPA coming in 2020. Yeah. I guess speak to the audience a little bit more around how that's impacted your field and what are some of the important things and why you think that's important for your vertical.
Yeah, for sure. I think healthcare rivals a lot of other very few verticals in terms of regulation. So just from a pure regulatory standpoint, and you mentioned, two of the very recent examples of GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act, those are absolutely the kind of things that keep our clients up at night, not in a good way. So we have to stay on top of that, and we have to have, so I think having a tool like Tag Inspector we're just starting to leverage, I think, some of those additional offerings that you guys have around privacy, but it is paramount in healthcare. And so even taking out the regulatory piece, our clients are very, very risk averse and very, very protective of not collecting information that we shouldn't be collecting. Even if the FDA wasn't involved, there's a very, very there's a black box with very, very thick lines that we don't want to cross. And so again, Tag Inspector has made it very, between just a very clean interface and a model of deployment, it makes us feel comfortable that we're collecting everything that we should and nothing that we shouldn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, very helpful, and I really appreciate that response. And I think we've seen organizations really move towards, it's not like I need to do this, it's an I have to do this. Yeah. That's where Tag Inspector has really helped organizations and your clients. So appreciate you sharing that. It's something that is really important to us. Not important because we want to have, we want to sell this product. It's important because we know that organizations are struggling getting that compliance across the different brands, verticals, especially in healthcare, especially with multi-brand organizations.
Yeah.
So I have one final question for you. Again, really appreciate your time. I would love to understand, just for the audience, like, why Tag Inspector? Why would you recommend it to another organization, no matter what vertical they're in? I'd love to hear just your thoughts now that you've engaged and we're kind of in that middle of the partnership since we started.
I think that's exactly it. I think more than anything, I would absolutely recommend Tag Inspector to, you know, other agencies or other, you know, other firms, because you guys really have been a partner to us. You know, I won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but for us, getting a lot of those rules set up for as many sites as we were working with was a very iterative process. And, you know, the entire team was incredibly supportive and how it kind of helped us work through issues rather than, you know, really just kind of, you know, taking things at face value. I think there was a lot of, you know, critical thinking and just like customer care. They really wanted to understand what it was that was, you know, driving our needs. So I mean, again, I think that's, you know, something you look for every time you go out and try and find a tool. But you guys really walk the walk. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think also just from a technology standpoint, some of what I would almost think of as like fringe benefits or you know, outcomes coming out of Tag Inspector gave us a deeper knowledge of sites that we thought we knew inside and out. So I would recommend it from that standpoint of just like, if you think you know your website and everything that's going on with it or your series of sites, believe there's probably room to grow and get even deeper knowledge, and Tag Inspector is a great way to do that. So I'm doubly grateful for it.
Thank you, Will. And I know our team is grateful for the partnership. We're thankful that you gave us an opportunity, and we look forward to really good things. And from our point of view, IQVIA is a best-in-class agency, and we hope we can find many partnerships as strong as ours. So thank you again for the time today, and really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brad.